The champagne flute shattered against marble as Inara stepped into the gilded ballroom, her $5 million dress shimmering like liquid midnight under crystal chandeliers. Every head turned, every whisper died, and across the room, through a sea of Italy's most dangerous men, Choi Tae-yoon, Seoul's most feared mafia boss, felt something crack open inside his chest, violent and irreversible, as their eyes met and the world tilted on its axis. Welcome to Afro-Korean romance, where love has no borders. If you believe in love, please like, share, and subscribe for more Afro-Korean romance stories. 3 hours earlier, Inara had laughed bitterly at the cream-colored invitation lying on her cramped apartment floor. "You're invited to the Valentino estate gala." The note attached, scrawled in Isabella Valentino's perfect handwriting, read, "Come show everyone what a real maid looks like dressed up. It'll be hilarious." Inara crumpled it slowly. She'd cleaned Isabella's penthouse for 2 years, enduring every cutting remark, every deliberate mess. But this was a new level of cruelty. She should have thrown it away, should have stayed home, but something white-hot and reckless burned through her exhaustion. If Isabella wanted a joke, Inara would give her a punchline she'd never forget. The next day, Inara stood before a dress boutique she'd passed 1,000 times but never entered. The owner, an elegant older woman, looked up from her magazine. "I need something unforgettable," Inara said quietly. The woman's eyes swept over her, assessing, calculating, then softened with understanding. "Come with me." An hour later, Inara stared at her reflection. The dress was midnight blue silk that wrapped around her curves like water, with hand-embroidered stars that caught light with every breath. It cost more than she'd earn in 5 years. "I can't." "It's yours," the woman interrupted. "Consider it an investment in revenge." That evening, Inara's hands trembled as she applied makeup, twisted her hair into an elegant updo, and slipped into the dress. She looked like someone else, someone powerful, someone worthy. The ride to the Valentino estate felt surreal. The villa sprawled across a hillside outside Florence, all white stone and manicured gardens. Luxury cars lined the circular drive. Men in dark suits stood at every entrance. Inara's driver, a kind man who'd asked no questions, stopped at the entrance. "You look like royalty, miss." She smiled despite her racing heart. "Let's hope they think so too." The moment she entered, silence rippled through the crowd like a shockwave. Women in designer gowns stared, men paused mid-conversation. Isabella Valentino's mouth fell open in genuine shock. But Inara only saw him. He stood near the windows, surrounded by dangerous-looking men who deferred to him with subtle nods. Korean, impossibly handsome, with sharp features and eyes so dark they looked black. His tailored suit probably cost more than the dress she wore. Power radiated from him like heat. And he was staring directly at her. Tae-yoon had come to Florence for business, a weapons deal with the Valentino family that required his personal attention. He'd expected boredom, political posturing, weak Italian wine. He hadn't expected her. The woman who'd just entered moved like liquid grace, her curves wrapped in silk that made every man in the room forget their companions. But it was her eyes that struck him, fierce and vulnerable at once, holding pain and pride in equal measure. Something territorial and primitive surged through him. Mine, his instincts screamed, irrational and absolute. "Who is she?" he asked his second-in-command, Jun-seo, without looking away. Jun-seo made a quick inquiry. "Isabella Valentino's former maid." This was apparently meant as a humiliation, but it backfired spectacularly. Tae-yoon finished, his jaw tight. He watched Isabella storm toward the woman, face twisted with rage. Without thinking, Tae-yoon moved. Inara felt Isabella's fury before she heard her voice. "How dare you show up here like you belong? That dress is probably rented, you pathetic." "Is there a problem?" A deep voice, accented and cold, cut through Isabella's tirade. Inara looked up and up into the most intense eyes she'd ever seen. The Korean man from across the room stood between her and Isabella, his presence commanding instant silence. "Mr. Choi," Isabella stammered, her anger deflating. "I was just, this woman is a guest," Tae-yoon said quietly, dangerously, "who appears to have more class than her hostess." The surrounding crowd murmured. Isabella paled. Tae-yoon turned to Inara, extending his hand. "Would you care for some air? It seems stuffy in here." Inara's heart hammered. She should refuse, should disappear before this got worse, but his eyes held something beyond protection, a hunger that made her knees weak. She placed her hand in his. The balcony overlooked gardens bathed in moonlight. Inara gripped the marble railing, trying to steady her breathing. Everything felt surreal, the dress, the humiliation turned triumph, this impossibly powerful man standing close enough that she felt his warmth. "Thank you," she managed, "you didn't have to." "What's your name?" His voice was softer now, almost gentle. "Inara." "Inara," he repeated like he was memorizing it. "I'm Tae-yoon, and I absolutely had to." She glanced at him. "Why?" His eyes held hers with unsettling intensity. "Because the moment you walked in, everything changed." The vulnerability in his voice shocked her. This man who radiated danger and control looked at her like she was oxygen and he'd been drowning. "I should go," Inara whispered, even though every cell in her body screamed to stay. "Don't," his hand covered hers on the railing, "please." The following morning, Inara woke in her cramped apartment convinced she'd dreamed the entire night. But the dress hanging on her door and the business card on her nightstand proved otherwise. Choi Tae-yoon, CEO, Seoul International Holdings. A phone number was handwritten on the back. Her phone buzzed. "An unknown number. Did you sleep well?" Her pulse jumped. "How did you get my number?" "I have resources. Have dinner with me tonight." "I can't. I have work." "Then tomorrow." "Mr. Choi Tae-yoon, and I'm very patient, Inara, but I'll ask every day until you say yes." She stared at the message, torn between exhilaration and terror. Men like him didn't pursue women like her. This was dangerous. But God help her, she wanted to say yes. That evening, Isabella's furious calls began. Threats, insults, demands that Inara never show her face again. Inara blocked the number, but the damage lodged in her chest like glass. She didn't belong in that world. Last night had been a beautiful aberration, nothing more. 2 days later, Inara was stocking shelves at the small market where she worked part-time when a sleek black car pulled up outside. Her stomach dropped. Tae-yoon emerged. Impossible and real, drawing stares from every person on the street. He walked directly to her. "You haven't answered my messages." "I've been busy," she lied. His eyes narrowed. "You're avoiding me." "I'm being realistic. She gestured at him, at the car, at everything he represented, "and I'm a maid who works 2 jobs. There's no universe where this makes sense." Something fierce flashed across his face. "Then we'll create a new universe." Before she could respond, he pulled out his phone and made a call in rapid Korean. When he finished, he looked at her. "You're done here." "Excuse me. I bought the building. You're done working today." Inara gaped at him. "You can't just." "I did. Now will you have dinner with me, or do I need to buy the entire block?" Later that night, Inara sat across from Tae-yoon in a private restaurant she couldn't have afforded in 10 lifetimes. He'd barely touched his food, just watched her with that unnerving intensity. "Why me?" she finally asked. "You could have anyone." "Because you walked into that ballroom like you owned it, wearing borrowed confidence and real courage. Because you're beautiful and don't seem to realize it. Because..." He leaned forward. "I looked at you and felt something I didn't know I was capable of feeling." Her breath caught. "Tae-yoon, I'm not a good man, Inara. I've done things that would horrify you. But I swear if you give me a chance I will protect you from everything, including myself." The raw honesty undid her. "I'm terrified." "So am I." His hand found hers across the table. "But I'd rather be terrified with you than safe without you." The following weeks blurred together in a dream. Tae-yoon pursued her relentlessly but patiently, flowers delivered to her apartment, surprise lunches, late-night calls that stretched until dawn. He learned everything about her, her love of old movies, her fear of abandonment, the way she hummed when she cooked. And slowly, impossibly, Inara's walls crumbled. A month later, Tae-yoon invited her to a charity gala his company sponsored. Inara wore a dress he'd sent, simpler than the Valentino gown but no less beautiful. His eyes when he saw her made her feel like the only woman alive. At the gala, Tae-yoon never left her side, his hand possessive on her lower back. But when a business associate, a handsome Italian man, asked Inara to dance, Tae-yoon's jaw clenched. "Go ahead," he said tightly, "if you'd like." Inara recognized jealousy when she saw it. Something warm bloomed in her chest. I'd rather stay with you. His eyes blazed. Good, because I don't share. That night in the car back to her apartment, tension hummed between them. Tae-yoon's hand gripped her thigh, possessive and desperate. Inara, he rasped, I'm trying to be patient, to do this right, but when another man looks at you. She kissed him. It was fire and need and months of restraint breaking at once. He groaned against her mouth, pulling her closer, one hand tangled in her hair. Come home with me, he breathed against her lips, please. She nodded, past words, past fear. His penthouse was all floor-to-ceiling windows and modern luxury, but Inara barely registered it. Tae-yoon's hands were gentle despite the hunger in his eyes, asking silent permission with every touch. Are you sure? He whispered. Yes. What happened next was heat and tenderness, desperation and devotion, bodies learning each other in the dark. He worshipped every curve, murmured Korean endearments she didn't understand but felt in her bones. And when they finally came together, Inara felt something fundamental shift, like she'd found the missing piece of herself she hadn't known was lost. Fade to black. Inara woke before dawn, Tae-yoon's arm wrapped possessively around her waist. Panic crashed through the afterglow. This was too much, too fast. Men like him didn't keep women like her. He'd realize his mistake and the rejection would destroy her. She slipped from his bed, dressed quietly, and left before courage failed her. Tae-yoon woke to cold sheets and immediate, visceral panic. He searched the penthouse, calling her name, but Inara was gone. No note, no message, just her absence like a wound. He called her phone, it rang tunelessly. Again. By the 10th attempt, his hands shook with something beyond anger, pure, devastating fear that he'd lost her before truly having her. Find her, he commanded Junseo over the phone, his voice lethal. Now. By midday, Tae-yoon stood outside Inara's apartment building, his control hanging by a thread. When she finally emerged for work, her eyes widened with shock. Tae-yoon. Why did you leave? Each word was carefully controlled, but pain bled through. Did I hurt you, did I? No, her voice cracked. You were perfect, that's the problem. He stepped closer, forcing her to meet his eyes. Explain. Last night was, she swallowed hard, everything, but you're going to wake up one day and realize I'm not enough. That I'm just some maid who doesn't fit in your world, and when you leave it'll break me, so I left first. Silence stretched between them, heavy and aching. Then Tae-yoon did something that shocked them both. He dropped to his knees on the sidewalk, ignoring the stares of passers-by. I'm not a man who begs, he said quietly, looking up at her. But for you, I'll destroy my pride. For you, I'll burn the world down or build a new one. Just don't run from me, Inara, please. Tears spilled down her cheeks. You can't promise that. Watch me, he stood, cupping her face with shaking hands. I'm yours, completely, irrevocably yours, and if you need me to prove it every day for the rest of our lives, I will. The following weeks felt like a waking dream. Tae-yoon kept his word obsessively, showing up after her shifts, cooking her dinner in his penthouse, learning to braid her hair because she mentioned liking it. His organization's business continued, but he arranged everything around her schedule. His men noticed the change. The boss who'd once been ice and strategy now smiled at his phone, left meetings early, and had a woman's picture as his wallpaper. She's made you soft, Junseo observed carefully. Tae-yoon's eyes went cold. She's made me human, there's a difference, and anyone who mistakes that for weakness will learn otherwise. 2 months later, Tae-yoon insisted Inara attend a business dinner with him, important associates from Seoul flying in specifically to meet. She was terrified, but he'd looked at her with such certainty that she'd agreed. The dinner was at an exclusive restaurant. 5 Korean men in impeccable suits sat around the table, speaking in mixture of Korean and English. They were polite to Inara, but clearly assessing, weighing, judging. So, Miss Inara, one man said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, how did you and Tae-yoon meet? Before she could answer, another man, younger, arrogant, laughed. I heard she was a maid at some Italian party. Is that true? The table went silent. Tae-yoon's expression could have cut glass. Yes, Inara said firmly, lifting her chin despite her racing heart. I'm not ashamed of honest work. Of course not, the young man continued, oblivious to danger. But surely you can see how unusual this pairing is, Tae-yoon Hyung, your family must be. Finish that sentence, Tae-yoon said softly, and you'll leave this restaurant in pieces. The man paled, the others shifted uncomfortably. Inara is the woman I'm going to marry, Tae-yoon continued, his hand finding hers under the table. Anyone who disrespects her disrespects me, and you all know how I handle disrespect. Later that night in his penthouse, Inara was quiet. Tae-yoon watched her with concern. What are you thinking? That you said you're going to marry me, she whispered, in front of all those people. Did I misread this? Worry flickered across his face. Do you not want? I want everything with you, she interrupted. But your world is so complicated. Those men tonight, they think I'm not good enough. What about your family in Seoul? He kissed her, deep and possessive. My family will love you because I love you, and if they don't, I'll choose you anyway, every time. You love me, her voice trembled. Hopelessly, completely, obsessively, his forehead pressed against hers. I love you, Inara, I think I have since the moment you walked into that ballroom like a queen. I love you too, she breathed and kissed him like it was a promise. The next morning, everything shattered. Tae-yoon left early for a meeting, kissing Inara awake and promising to return for lunch. She just stepped out of the shower when her phone rang, an unknown number. Hello. Inara, a woman's voice, Korean accented. This is Choi Min-jae, Tae-yoon's mother, we need to talk. An hour later, Inara sat in a cafe across from an elegant woman who radiated the same controlled power as her son. You seem like a nice girl, Min-jae said carefully. But you must understand, my son has responsibilities, expectations. His marriage was arranged years ago to secure alliances between families. The world tilted. What? He's engaged, dear, has been since childhood, surely he told you. No, Inara's voice sounded distant to her own ears. He didn't. Min-jae's expression softened with what might have been pity. He cares for you, I'm sure, but this is bigger than emotion. Family, legacy, business, these things matter in our world. You're a distraction, nothing more. If you truly care for him, you'll walk away before this damages him further. Inara left the cafe in a daze. Her phone buzzed with messages from Tae-yoon. Where was she? Was she okay? He was worried. She turned her phone off. By evening, she'd packed her few belongings and bought a bus ticket to Rome. She'd find work, start over, forget the impossible dream she'd been living. But first, she left him a note slipped under his penthouse door. Your mother came to see me. I understand now. This was beautiful, but it can't be real. I'm sorry. Be happy. Tae-yoon found the note when he returned home, frantic after hours of searching. He read it once, twice, then his control finally splintered. He called his mother while simultaneously ordering Jun Seo to trace Inara's location. What did you do? His voice was arctic. What was necessary, Min-jae replied calmly. Tae-yoon, you're engaged to. I ended that engagement 3 years ago, you know this. The only reason you'd tell her otherwise is to drive her away. Silence, then she's not suitable. She's everything, his voice broke, and if you've cost me her, you've lost your son. He hung up and turned to Jun Seo. Where is she? Bus station, Rome-bound bus leaves in 20 minutes. Tae-yoon was in his car before Jun Seo finished speaking. He broke a dozen traffic laws racing to the station. The bus was boarding when he arrived, scanning faces desperately. Then he saw her standing in line, shoulders hunched, crying silently. Inara. She turned, shock and pain warring on her face. He pushed through the crowd, not caring who he shoved aside. Don't get on that bus, he commanded breathlessly, please. Your mother said. My mother lied? He gripped her shoulders gently but firmly. Yes, I was engaged. 20 years ago when I was a child, families made arrangements, but I ended it the moment I was old enough to have a choice. There's no fiancé, no arrangement, just you, only you. How do I know that's true? He pulled out his phone, making a call on speaker. His mother's voice answered. Tell her, Tae-yoon said coldly, tell Inara the truth or you never see me again. A long pause, then Min-jae's resigned voice. There's no current engagement. I lied because I thought she was wrong for you. I see now I was mistaken. I'm sorry. Tae-yoon ended the call, his eyes never leaving Inara's face. I'm not perfect, my family is complicated and my business is dangerous, but I'm yours completely and only yours. Come home with me, please. She collapsed into him, sobbing against his chest. I'm sorry, I should have trusted you. You should have, he agreed, holding her fiercely. And I should have told you everything from the start. No more secrets, no more running. Agreed. Agreed. 6 months later, Tae-yoon took Inara to Seoul to meet his family properly. Min-jae was reserved but respectful, clearly trying to make amends. His father, a retired politician, liked Inara immediately. She has spine, he told Tae-yoon approvingly. You chose well. But danger still lurked in their world. Tae-yoon had enemies, rival organizations, business competitors, men who resented his power. And now that Inara was publicly his, she became a target. The attack came on a Friday evening. Inara was leaving her new job. Tae-yoon had helped her open a small bakery, her dream, when 3 men grabbed her, forcing her into a van before she could scream. She woke in a cold warehouse, wrists bound. A man with cruel eyes crouched before her. Nothing personal, sweetheart, but Choi Tae-yoon took something from me, now I take something from him. Terror clawed through her, but she forced her voice steady. He'll kill you. The man laughed. He'll try. He had no idea how right she was. When Tae-yoon discovered Inara missing, something primal and terrifying took over. He called in every resource, every contact, every favor owed. Jun Seo had never seen his boss like this, ice-cold fury and barely leashed violence. Find her, Tae-yoon said quietly, or I burn this city down brick by brick. It took 4 hours of hell before they traced the van, identified the kidnapper, a rival who'd lost territory in a recent dispute, and located the warehouse. Tae-yoon didn't wait for strategy or backup. He walked through the front door alone, gun in hand, death in his eyes. The fight was brief and brutal. Tae-yoon moved through the warehouse like a force of nature, taking down guards with cold efficiency. When he reached Inara, bound but alive, something in his chest unlocked. I've got you, he murmured, cutting her bonds with shaking hands. You're safe now. The man who'd taken her tried to run. Tae-yoon shot him in the leg, then stood over him with the gun aimed at his head. Please, the man begged. You touched what's mine, Tae-yoon's voice was emotionless. There's no forgiveness for that. Tae-yoon, Inara's soft voice cut through his rage. Don't, I'm okay, let's just go home. He looked at her, his reason for living, his redemption, and lowered the gun. For you, he said, only for you. 2 weeks later, Tae-yoon took Inara to a private beach at sunset. She'd recovered from the ordeal, though he still woke some nights checking that she was beside him, safe and real. I need to ask you something, he said, pulling her close as waves lapped at their feet. Okay. He dropped to one knee, pulling out a ring that caught the dying light, a sapphire surrounded by diamonds, unique and perfect. I'm not good with pretty words, but I know that every moment with you is the only time I feel truly alive. You're my home, my heart, my everything. Marry me, Inara. Let me spend the rest of my life proving you made the right choice. She was crying and laughing at once. Yes, God, yes. The wedding took place 3 months later in a private ceremony overlooking the sea, small, intimate, perfect. Inara wore white silk that Tae-yoon couldn't stop staring at, and when they exchanged vows, his voice broke with emotion. I promise to protect you, cherish you, and love you until my last breath, he said. You saved me, Inara, let me spend forever saving you back. Their wedding night was tender and passionate. A claiming and a surrender, 2 souls finally irrevocably joined. 1 year later, Inara stood in the nursery of their Seoul home, one hand on her swollen belly, watching the sunset, arms wrapped around her from behind, Tae-yoon's hands covering hers protectively. How are you feeling? He murmured against her neck. Perfect, she leaned into him, complete. Their daughter, because of course Tae-yoon had arranged for the best doctors to confirm, kicked vigorously. He laughed, that rare sound that still made Inara's heart flip. She's strong like her mother. Stubborn like her father, Inara countered. He turned her gently to face him, love blazing in his eyes. I used to think I knew what power was, money, influence, fear, but real power, it's this. You, our baby, this life we built from impossible beginnings. You're my greatest victory, Inara, my only one that matters. She kissed him softly, and you're my everything. Outside, the city glittered with possibility. Inside, they held each other close, two unlikely souls who'd found their forever in each other's arms, proof that love could conquer prejudice, danger, and doubt. That love, against all odds and enemies and fear, always found a way.